Welcome to my TED Talk, Unlocking the Secrets of the Technoverse, subtitled Towards an Orthodox Understanding of Technology. Now, of course, that title is basically just a joke to catch your attention, but what we're going to be seeking to do today is to challenge your understanding of and relationship with technology through an Orthodox lens. My name is Cooper Buss, and I will be your guide today. I hope that you will leave here equipped with theoretical and practical strategies that you can employ immediately to refocus your technological life. A fair amount of this content is targeted towards parents because the influence of technology on the lives of our children is ever increasing and a hot topic in my parish currently. But I believe the key to shifting our relationship with technology is rooted in its understanding, our understanding of what technology is and how it functions in our lives. And so most of this content, I think, is applicable to essentially anyone and everyone. I will speak generally at first about technology, but most of the time during this presentation, when I speak about technology, I mean specifically internet-connected devices with screens. Let's begin by just defining what technology is. Present to you this definition, which is kind of an amalgamation of a few different definitions from dictionaries. But technology is defined as the product of the application of knowledge to achieve practical goals in a reproducible way, especially in the changing and manipulation of the human environment. Remember those words because we will return to them frequently. This is a secular textbook definition of technology. It focuses around the achievement of practical goals through the changing and manipulation of the human environment. Let's look at technology in the Bible. According to that definition of technology, technology is everywhere, and actually even language itself can be defined as a type of technology. But the way we think of technology in terms of, electronics and gizmos and those types of things, it's actually, it doesn't play a very large role in the Bible. Rarely is any element of technology the focus of a Bible story. But interestingly enough, in a review of Scripture, I found the book of the Bible that most frequently references and addresses technology is actually Genesis. I'm going to tease some concepts here as we talk about the presence of technology, especially in the book of Genesis, that I hope you will see we will return to later on. In the beginning, God created everything and said that it was good. So good that the phrase, "and behold, it was good," is repeated over and over and over again in Scripture. And Scripture always repeats whatever it wants to emphasize. It repeats whatever it wants to make sure it drives home to us. And that is one of the key messages of the creation story that we believe is that it was good. God created things that are good. And the Orthodox understanding of how God created is that he did not simply synthesize, taking matter that already existed and creating things. He actually created matter out of nothing. And that is a unique ability that God alone has. We know, as Orthodox people, what matters. We know that matter matters. We know that we are not to forsake this world. There's actually a heresy, an ancient heresy, called dualism or Manichaeism. They believe that we essentially need to become like angels, like spiritual beings, and that all of the physicality of our lives was in fact less and evil even. We know that we are to be in the world, but not of it. And if we ever doubt the goodness of the world, we only have to look so far as the incarnation. Even though God is spirit, that is Orthodox dogma, that God is spirit, his chosen strategy to save the world was not a purely spiritual one. It was a physical strategy. Jesus Christ was fully man and fully God, both at the same time. We're to be constantly reminded of the place of matter in our salvation in the life of the church. Think to yourself about ways in which the life of the church reminds us that matter is good. I'm going to ask many kind of questions that encourage you to ponder, and I'll pause, but I'll also give you the answer. So if you want to answer for yourself, pause the video to get more time to think. The church teaches us very frequently that matter matters and it's good. It teaches us about this in the sacraments, all of which have physical matter made to be perfect. The Eucharist, Holy Chrism, baptism, bread and wine, oil and water all become, their physicalities become something that is so good and so perfect because of what God does for them and to them. What we tend to do in our lives, not in the life of the church, but in our lives, is we tend to combine the physical things around us in ways that are more useful to us or that bring us pleasure. And we see some examples of this, as I had mentioned, in Genesis. Two big examples of technology in Genesis, and here they are side by side. These both are examples of people using matter to build something for themselves. And in both cases, something that was useful to them. And in one case was used egotistically, in one case used specifically for the service of God. Now, we have here the Tower of Babel and the Ark of Noah. Think about in what ways the Tower of Babel and the Ark of Noah are similar, and in what ways they're different. In both situations, we see a choice that is made by humanity. How do we use technology? How do we use the things we build, and why do we build them? And when we build them, how does it shape our world and shape who we are? In Noah's case, God instructed him to build the ark. God gave Noah specifications of how to create a piece of technology, a magnificent piece of technology, a giant vessel. And Noah responded in faith, and he built a vessel of salvation that through divine inspiration and specification was an act of God's love to save humanity, to save life. It was an act of piety. He submitted to God. He built something for God that was an end, part of our salvation. This icon is fascinating. This is the church as the ark. The church being a type and the ark being a type, connected concepts in which we are saved amidst the storm of this world. So that's what this icon depicts, which I think is amazing and beautiful. Now, on the other hand, we have the Tower of Babel. And in the scripture, the people of perhaps Babylon, it's actually not proven, but that is a theory, that it was in fact Babylonians, that said to themselves, they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens so that we may make a name for ourselves." Whoops, too far. That's a bold statement. Let us build for ourselves a city that reaches to the heavens. They were trying to elevate themselves and make themselves like God, to make a name for themselves. They used technology. They used the matter at their disposal and their own intellects to elevate themselves, to put themselves in God's place. It was an act of ego and pride. These are like polar opposite examples of the use of technology that we have presented in just the first few chapters of the book. Cain and Abel, a third example from Genesis that we will look at. Here's some interesting things. I think we glance over some of this in the Bible story. The line of Cain. Whatever happened to those folks that descended from Cain? Well, we know a bit about them. Cain was the first murderer, the archetypical murderer. And in some ways, an archetypical sinner as well. And he was exiled from the presence of God to the land of Nod, which essentially always makes me think of sleepy people for some reason. But essentially, the land of Nod, the Hebrew words used there, meant the land of wandering. So I'm going to read this to you, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the words here. So after Cain murdered Abel, he went out from the Lord's presence into the land of Nod, the land of wandering, east of Eden, the famous Steinbeck book. This is a land outside of the presence of God. Cain chose to leave God's presence, to go into wandering. He made love to his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. And then Cain built a city and named it after his son. Ooh, a little act of pride and nepotism there, I would say. And then down the line, Lamech, who is in the line of Cain. I have no idea if that's how you pronounce it, by the way. It just seems like it sounded cool. Don't quote me on Lamech. I don't know if there's that sound in there. Ignore that. Anyways, Lamech married 2 women, and the line of Cain went on. And they became people who lived in tents and raised livestock. But some of the other descendants of Cain, look at what they did here. Jubal was the father of all who played stringed instruments and pipes. They were essentially the creators of music and instruments, the first musicians. And also, Tubal-Cain forged tools out of bronze and iron. They were tool makers and metallurgists. The line of Cain were technologists. They were people that used matter quite cleverly to create things that either brought them pleasure or were useful to them. Interpret all this the way that you want, but this is the first mention in Scripture that we see of the development of economy, tools, instruments, and metalworking. It came out of the line of Canaan. It came out of the people who, through an act of egregious sin, murder, had left the presence of God and were wandering. There are good things. There's goodness in stringed instruments and tools and metallurgy and city building. Very good things. But it is interesting to me that the presentation, the development of technology in the Bible came from the people wandering outside of the presence of God. And I think when I created this presentation, it was before the AI revolution that is happening in 2023. But how much more so is technology dangerous when developed outside of the presence of God, outside of a place of piety and dedication to the use of matter for the goodness of God and for our own salvation. So the arc, pun intended, of the story of the line of Cain is that it culminates in the Tower of Babel. The Canaanites were out of the presence of God. Not the Canaanites and the Babylonians. I misspoke. So the arc of the story of the Canaanites culminates in the flood. So the line of Cain leads to the ark event. God saw the world as beyond salvation. And in this moment we see that the technologization of the world did not lead early humanity closer to God. It led them essentially to spiritual ruin, and God felt the need to reset. Interestingly enough, he reset through the ark, which was itself a piece of technology, but perhaps a fairly perfect piece of technology, and that it was used for God and for salvation alone. Ask yourselves these questions. In your life, or perhaps even society, although sometimes it's easier to look at the problems that are around us than to see them within ourselves, who are you more like? Are you more like Noah or the line of Cain? Do you use technology for your own salvation as well as the salvation of your family? Or are you more like the line of Cain and the people who built the Tower of Babel, using technology to please yourself, make things easier, and perhaps in doing so, elevating yourself to the level of God in an act of pride? Do you control your technology? Reflect on the relationship you have with your internet-connected screens that we surround ourselves with. Do you control those devices? Or do you let them control you? Ask yourself these questions. What do you do when you have to wait? What do you do when you're in the bathroom? What do you do when you're alone? What do you do before you fall asleep at night? Do you spend quality time with yourself? Do you spend time in prayer? I believe that we fill our emptiness with technology. We fill our silence and our space with our devices. And this is akin to a spiritual struggle. We Orthodox are accustomed to the spiritual struggle, but the rest of the world is engaged with us in this relationship with technology, and it is akin to a spiritual struggle that we know. Internet-connected technology with screens are a new kind of matter, a new kind of tool, a new family of technology. And they're in fact not tools. It's an illusion. Our phones, TVs, computers, they are not matter. They only have very little in common with a hammer or a screwdriver that sits waiting for you to engage it, because our devices have a will of their own. And that will is based on a perverse incentive that is inherent in your devices. A company can and will and does sell you technology at a loss, and sometimes even giving it to you for free. We get a lot of cell phones for free, and that is because they know they can make more money using that technology to influence you and how you allocate your resources. If I may apply a Bible verse with some slight editing from me to fit the context. Ephesians 6:12, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the forces that hide in the shadows of our lives." We have a techno-spiritual struggle that we engage in all day long. The spiritual side has always been true for Christians. There have always been distractions, things that pull us away from our attentiveness to God. But now that same thing is true for all people in all ways, even if they don't see the spiritual aspect. Let's return to our definition. Remember that technology is the application of knowledge to achieve practical goals in a reproducible way, especially in the changing and manipulation of the human environment. Therefore, if we do not control our technology, what will happen? What happens if we do not follow the example of Noah and the ark? What if we do not use our technology for a tool of our salvation and a tool that helps us love God and love each other? Here's what happens. Technology will instead influence us to achieve someone else's practical goals in a reproducible way, especially in the changing and manipulation of our environments in line with corporate or someone else's values. Many of us have felt that or identified this pull in our lives where our technology is influencing us. And if we look below the surface at the impact that this can have on our lives, we see that technology is actually influencing us to become slaves to our own desires. We are basically enslaving ourselves to our own desires because our technology is designed to do that for us, to keep us glued. Our environment is being changed to feed our own desires so that we actually do not love God or each other, but only love ourselves. In short, we have and are building our own towers of Babel, and then we become trapped in them, pulled by the whim of our passions, which are essentially the manifestation of the worst parts of ourselves. I propose that therefore we use our technology and our devices to achieve our practical and spiritual goals, especially in the changing and manipulation of our environments according to our Orthodox values. We have to turn the whole thing around. What is the core goal of Orthodoxy? Answer in your head. Theosis. I love that I came to Orthodoxy from Protestant evangelicalism, and the questions around the point of it all is maybe a good answer that most people give is salvation, but Orthodox people have a very focused answer to this question. The point of it is theosis, deification, to become more like God. In order to do this, we have to take back control of our lives from technology. Here's an outline for this presentation that I used the earliest iteration of ChatGPT to create an outline for. It was remarkably similar to my original plan for this presentation, so I burned that plan, and now we're doing this, which is dramatically different. One other thing that was interesting about this outline is that if you look closely, it's tiny print, but the AI repeatedly used a word that I'd never heard before, and that was holily, Hollyly. And I was like, that sounds weird, and I looked it up, and that is not a word. It made up a word to use in this context. So don't ask me how it did that. I don't know. Maybe AI is better now. But I thought that was hilarious. So we're not following this outline, but it was an interesting experience about me using technology in a way that was going to make my job easier, but ultimately was a complete misstep. So here's what we're not going to talk about today. We've laid some of the groundwork. We're not going to talk about the classic things that people talk about, especially around parenting with technology. I'm not going to be write down your values. I'm not going to encourage you to set time limits and write those down and talk about them. I'm not going to tell you how to put parental controls on your kids' devices, or get your little timer devices that shuts off your social media apps. All those things are good, and you should do all those things. But I think instead we need to be honest. I have my son Declan is 5 months old. But at the time of originally creating this presentation, he was just about 2 months old. And Jess and I, my wife, were sitting in our basement in front of our TV. We only have one TV. It's in the basement. And there's a TV on. She was feeding him. And our 2-month-old baby, we repeatedly had to tell him, Declan, no screens, no screens. Our 2-month-old was so taken by a screen. He doesn't know what's going on. He couldn't even see clearly what was going on that screen. It is so impactful to your brain that even a 2-month-old can't tear his eyes from it. That is the power we're dealing with here. Bottom line, we are already addicted to technology, and so are our children. It's too enticing, too helpful, too powerful, too pleasurable. It's designed to be that way, and it'll only get better. Technology, it's easy to see it as just evil. I've already said that it is far more than a tool. That is an illusion. It's far more than that. But it's also not rat poison. Technology or devices, they won't kill you. It's also not heroin. It's not highly addictive, chemically addictive. It is in a little ways. It's not intense. It's far more insidious than that. Technology, I believe, is more akin to alcohol. Our use of our devices is more like a relationship with alcohol. Alcohol can be addictive. It does affect your mood. It is ubiquitous in our society. It can be really, really good. A tool of our salvation. It becomes the very blood of Christ. It is the substance, the chemical substance, the liquid substance that God has chosen for the Eucharist. In fact, it can be like the ark in that sense. But alcohol also has the capacity to destroy our lives, destroy our families, and mess with our society. There's no legal age to technological use. There are barely laws. The government cannot keep up with the pace of technology and innovation to create laws around it for our society. We barely even have common sense around the healthy use of technology. The interesting thing about alcohol is that it's actually good. Christ made it in one of his miracles, the wedding at Cana. He made wine. He made alcohol. It is a good thing. It becomes the blood of Christ. But it also has a propensity to become very destructive. Not on its own, but on the way we use it. One more realization that I hope you can make. You are probably a technoholic. I know I am. I'm always on my phone. I try not to be. I actually try to keep things off of my phone that get me to go back onto my phone. But it's like a struggle relationship that I have with my technology. Your kids are probably technoholics too. I think step 0 is for us to understand and look at our phones, tablets, computers, TVs, game systems, like we look at alcohol, and realize that we have an unhealthy relationship with those devices. There is no Technoholics Anonymous. There's no support group for this. There's no 12-step program that will help you. We have to view our technology the same way that we view our passions. God gave them to us, but we misuse and misdirect them. We have to control our technology the same way we control our passions. That starts with prayer, confession, and ultimately the life in Christ. We must fill our lives and our children with these things, and it will reshape our relationship with technology from within. How do we do that? Let's move on to step 1. Subversion. Yes, the upside down Nike logo. Just don't do it. No, I don't know. But anyways, we have to use technology against itself. The only thing powerful enough to control and help us with technology other than God is technology itself. It does give you the ability to control it. There is an off button, although actually it's interesting if you notice cell phones have gotten harder to turn off. There's no longer a power button. I have to hit 2 buttons on my phone to get to turn off, which I think is hilarious. So originally I thought the upside down Nike symbol would be subversive enough as an image, but because that symbol used to mean victory. Nike, Nika, victory, but upside down looks like an angry eyebrow a little bit. But we as Christians have a far better symbol of subversion. Maybe the ultimate symbol of subversion. It is the ultimate symbol of subversion. Can you guess what it is? If you guessed the cross, you're right. It was an ancient Roman instrument of torture, judgment, humiliation, and execution. It spelled death. It's about the worst death. And now it represents the vehicle of our salvation. The cross and the ark have some interesting connections. They were both made out of wood, which is living matter that was cut down and used to create something through which we were saved. Pretty interesting to reflect on that. But the cross is a symbol of subversion that we wear on our chests. Think to yourself, what are some of the ways that we manage to change and manipulate our time and spaces, change and manipulate our environment for the glory of God? List some ways that you've done that in your life. The church has been baked in to our lives. Fasting. That changes your time, it changes your food, it changes your money. It forces you to say no to your desires. It's hard. I had some ice cream last night on a Wednesday. Shouldn't have. Prayed about it. We have icons that we use to change our physical space to remind us of God. The church building, the church proper is a great example of that, where we have sanctified that space, basically. We also wear a cross to change our bodies, make our bodies different, and we take the body and blood of Christ into us so that we can become it. So there's quite a bit that we do to change our time and spaces. What I propose that we must do is sanctify all of our digital spaces. The sanctification of digital space, the same way that we sanctify our physical space and our time through fasting and icons and crosses. We should do that same thing, but digitally, because this is like the new war front. It's the digital war front, right? Here's an example in the church. Like some of my Protestant friends come to our church and they wonder, why is Mary up there? Why is she the biggest? Like, isn't it about God? And I'm like, hold on, look up. Christ is always above us. He's always in the dome. Pontokrator, the all-powerful. We put him above all things in church as a constant reminder. This is what we must do digitally in our digital lives. We must replace Christ above ourselves in all of our environments. Here are some ways you can do that I'll rattle off. Christian wallpapers. Another good way to do wallpapers, unless you, like, maybe you don't want to be at work, like, overtly, like, having crosses on icons and everything. If that's not appropriate. Maybe you should anyways, but I don't know. Just the beauty of nature is It's a really good way as a living icon that you can have as wallpaper. Screensavers on your phone or your computer. Those types of things that just are always going to act as a constant reminder, the beauty, the glory, the love of God. Put icons strategically in your spaces. So like I have an icon right here that that stares at me while I'm working on my computer, the element of accountability, a reminder of prayer as I'm working. So put icons where you work and study. Set prayer reminders on your phone. You can sanctify your phone and also your time by setting prayer reminders. I actually have an alarm every 3 hours, basically, to pray the hours. And at best I stop and I say prayers. At worst I silence it and then forget about it. But hopefully most of the time say the Jesus prayer or the Lord's prayer. Look at your phone, pull it up, scroll through your apps, and look at your app balance. Do you have a ton of games? Do you have a ton of entertainment apps? How many Orthodox apps do you have on there? How many of your apps exist solely as tools? Like email can be a tool. It also can be a source of entertainment because a lot of people just get stuff in their inbox that's fun, But some of your apps are tools, like your banking app. You may need them to perform a function in your life. But probably I would bet a lot of your apps are entertainment. If you want to know more about social media, tune into the other episode. That'll also be posted on the website. Audit your inbox. Scroll through your emails. See what you're subscribing to. You are what you eat, and what comes into your inbox is something that you are intellectually eating every day. What types of emails are you getting? You're getting emails from church. You're getting emails that you have to respond to because they're part of your job or your life. Or are you getting emails for stuff to buy, fun stuff, fashion, pop culture, entertainment? Think about the balance of what you're subscribing to. In the same way in your social feed. What is what you're seeing in your social feed doing to your brain? Are you being led closer to God as you're scrolling your social media feeds? Or are you being led away from Him? Or at best, are you just simply distracted? Here's strategy number 2. Does anybody know where you can find the moon on your computer? Newer Macs, have a key. On my computer, it's right here, F6. It's like conveniently right at the top middle. And that button turns off all notifications on my computer. When you're in a meeting, when you want to focus, when you're done working at the end of the day, savagely control your notifications. Savagely. I'll give you a little hint. Maybe try this. I keep mine off always, and I love it. I love it. Same goes for your phone. A couple years ago, I turned off all the notifications on my phone. I do not get a notification while Duolingo, that little green bird, tells me I need to practice Chinese. But other than that, I get texts and calls. That's it. Nothing else. No social media, no email, no other apps telling me it's time to play your game or like, here's a sale for you. None of that. And it is true freedom. Try it. Turn off all your notifications, and you will taste it, and you will see that it is good. This is how you begin to control your technology, moving away from the key ways that your technology manipulates you. It is through notifications. It's through the grabbing of your attention. Do this on your phone. Do this on your computer. If you don't know how, literally just go to Google and be like Android notification settings, Mac notification settings, whatever it is. Just type your questions to Google. It'll tell you. Reboot. Take the opportunity right after this to reboot your settings. Turn off all your notifications. Uninstall all of your non-Orthodox apps. Unless you need the apps for your life, try doing a little app reset. Uninstall all of them. Guess what? There's a list that Apple and Android keeps for you of all the apps you've ever had. Like, you can get them back easy, let's be honest. But how many of those apps do you not need? How many of them are just actually pulling your attention away from what matters? The other thing that's nice, this is a way to reorganize and sanctify some of your physical space in terms of your relationship with technology. Create technology spaces. Create spaces in your life or in your home where technology lives, and then keep it there. Leave it as a tool, an external tool that does not draw you away. But you should have to go to engage with your technology. It should not just follow you around your house, because that's how it's going to start to control you. So create the spaces for technology and allow it to function within those spaces appropriately. All right, I want to end with a few lessons from the Bus household. Bus is my last name. I have 5 younger brothers. They range from senior in college to 8 right now. I've had the great fortune of watching my parents parent them, teach them, help them grow, and then reflecting on how they did those things for me and how they're doing them now. They have a lot of experience, and I've been able to see like this interesting kind of like semi-involved spectator role where I've been able to watch them do these things. We're not perfect. Family's not perfect, but they do have some pretty interesting strategies that I've seen working. Some of them only work for some of my brothers, not the others too. So you might have to try everything. But here are some strategies from the Bus household. Hide stuff. Literally, they hide their technology, and then they end up forgetting where it is, and then they have to use like Find My Phone to like find where the iPad is again. But like, if people shouldn't be using technology, hide it, put it away, tuck it away far away where only one person knows where it is. That will help you control and break your addiction, your dependency. My whole life, I've only ever had one TV, and it's been in the basement. I think that is a really good boundary to set. You should have to go somewhere to watch TV. There should be an environment in which you watch TV, and that's the only place you watch TV. That's what I believe. That's really helped me in my life too. Probably no tablets. I actually think that maybe you have some really good reasons why you need a tablet, but I think tablets are actually really just designed to just get people to spend more time on screens that they absolutely don't need to. Maybe you check your email on tablets because your phone's too small, but maybe you should just go to your computer to do that anyways. I don't know. Not trying to be judgmental, but I think probably nobody really needs tablets in their lives. That's my suggestion to you. We already talked about creating designated technology areas, which we try having probably your main floor, especially if you have kids. Like unsupervised technology time is pretty dangerous for kids, because if they have access to a web browser, you cannot control their access to harmful content. You can't. So set up some designated areas. Fasting, this was maybe like the biggest thing from the whole presentation that I would love for people to try. First of all, fast with the church. Second of all, when you're fasting from your food with the church, also try fasting from technology. Pick the things that you spend the most time on that don't help you or are value added, that entertainment stuff, social media, video games, Netflix, whatever it is, sports, dare I say sports, and fast from those things when you're fasting with the church. Fasting is designed to help us have a more healthy and godly relationship with those things in our lives that call to us. So do technology fasting. Plan reboots every quarter. Reset your relationship with technology. Look at your apps, look at your newsfeed, look at your newsletters, look at your social media connections, and reset. Unsubscribe, unfollow. Do what you need to do. Reset your notification settings. I know sometimes like my phone will do an update and it'll actually change notification settings on me that I'll have to go and turn back off. And the last one is my favorite, and this worked with one of my brothers, but if your kids really insist on technology time, give them just a taste. Say, absolutely, you can play video games, but it's 1 minute a day. So that sounds hilarious, but like 5 minutes. It's crazy, but give them just a taste, and that's it. And then they'll get in the practice of shutting down quickly and not getting too involved. So try these things. Let me know how they go. So what have we learned today? Let's hit the highlights. Number 1, take back control of your life from technology. Technology is akin to alcohol and the passions. It can be very good. It's designed for good, but also can be very bad, very addictive, very destructive. The ways that we can take back control are by sanctifying our digital spaces, rebooting our relationship with technology, especially in the form of what we're subscribing to, what we're paying for, and our notification settings. Oh, donate technology. We didn't talk about that, but like if you have extra devices, just get rid of them. Get rid of them. Donate your extra TV, donate your tablet, and then start fasting from technology. And I hope that your relationship with technology will begin to evolve, and it in itself will become a more holy thing that actually helps move you closer to God. Thank you for your time. I encourage you to go and peruse some of the other presentations and blogs that are posted on the website. There's one on social media. There's one on icons and virtual worlds, basically like whatever we escape through and what icons can teach us about those things. And there's also a session where Father Tim and I just kind of ask questions and answer questions that from an audience. I encourage you to go and check all those things out. And I pray for you, and that your relationship with technology would be like Noah's relationship with the ark. It would be an act of piety, dedication, in which technology is used for your salvation and for the love of God and the love of each other. Amen.